gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
The electricity here in Columbia, well, has been buzzing loudly all weekend.
Passion of the crowd in Williams-Brice Stadium is second to none.
And the rave breaks out in Columbia.
It is good!
Gamecock fans, welcome home.
See how it goes, but we'll be ready to go.
It's time to root.
North Carolina! It's gone! Touchdown! What a hit! He baked it in! Can you believe it? Gamecocks have won this game!
Here are your hosts, J.C. Sherber.
Oh, watch him celebrate now!
Phil Molinex.
My wife doesn't like hanging around losers.
And Jamie Bradford.
I'm going to tell him, you look like you joined Duck Dynasty.
Greetings and good morning.
Welcome in.
This
It's been so long since we started the show. We don't know how to do it. No.
Yeah, I was like, I had to go read the directions. That's why I'm late. Nah, I was doing some work for some other things. Thought I was going to have a good morning this morning, and then like phone call after phone call after phone call. One of those was from JB. All right, he's playing in a golf tournament, right? And one of the foursomes ahead of him has Darius Rucker, Rick Carlisle, and Dan Marino.
Oh, jeez.
And
Nice.
he's like, I think he's a little nervous, going to play in this thing. Shane Beamer's in the tournament. I mean, they're doing it up right. I had to get off the phone with him because I had other phone calls to make before he did that. But anyway, we're going to get right to it as SEC Media Days flows along. I told you guys yesterday, too, I'd get into some of these height and weight things, answer some questions from the chat box. You know how we do it, kind of loosey-goosey. Phil, we have another guest at 12:30. Is that correct, Brad Crawford?
Brad
joining us at 12:30?
Yes,
He was
sir.
supposed to join us yesterday, but he had a television gig. Oh, my goodness, a television gig. And so Brad will be with us today to update us from Nashville. Chris Phillips from the Spurs Up Show will be here tomorrow to update us from Nashville. So it's just like we're there. Anyway, Texas A&M's on the schedule this year. Surprisingly enough, they're on the schedule the following year too. So it's never a bad time to check in on the Aggies and want to bring in like the best ever to do it in that market. There's one other guy I may say is a co-best, but this guy's the best. I've been reading his stuff my entire career. Jeff Tarpley from Gigem24. Jeff, how's it going, buddy?
Great, guys. How are y'all doing this morning?
Super. I gotta ask you right off the bat, because here's my theory. Everybody always talks about what are they going to say at media days, blah, blah, blah. Do you think Jimbo Fisher's sick of people asking about, are you and Bobby Petrino going to be able to coexist? To me, man, I look at it and I'm like, wow, can we just keep asking that over and over again? Your thoughts on that first and foremost?
I just don't think he wants to discuss it because he basically had to demote himself from something that he's done all his life. And I believe it was December press conference, he talked about, and he's talked about this in the past too, what it meant for him to call plays, how he grew up calling plays, how he managed games calling plays. And you could tell that he thought it was important to him as a head coach to be able to do those things. But it was also important for him to be able to continue to do that on a very personal level. Keep in mind, Kirby Smart doesn't call the defenses at Georgia. Nick Saban doesn't call the defenses at Alabama. But nonetheless, it was something that Fisher felt like he needed to do in order to take himself to where he needed to be in the profession and take his programs to where he wanted them to be. And so to look into that aspect of it and go, you know what, it's really best that I step away from it. Not everybody can do that. I think he found it very, very difficult to do. But at the end of the day, I think with some help from other people inside the program, Fisher figured out that if he was going to get anything else or the things that he needed to get A&M over the hump, so to speak. Remember, this is a program that was on the ascension after the 2020 season, and now it's fallen back a bit, that he was going to have to step away whether he wanted to or not. And so I think he knew going into the offseason that it was going to come up. He would prefer not to have to talk about it. He's having to talk about it. And I think it affected him very much on a personal level, perhaps even more so than on a professional level, because at the end of the day, I think he's got a lot of confidence in Bobby Petrino in terms of running an offense like Fisher wants an offense to be run. Both of their philosophies are relatively similar in that regard. Both of them start out with the West Coast as their base concepts, and then they've added on to those things. But I think at the end of the day, he's comfortable with Bobby Petrino being his offensive coordinator. He's comfortable with Bobby Petrino being his play caller. But again, having to sit there and essentially demote yourself and everybody in the room know that you demoted yourself, I think it's evident, no matter how much time passes, he's just going to have a problem with that.
Talking with Jeff Tarpley from Gigem24. Yeah, and I'm with you there. You know, everybody's kind of talking about Garrett Riley. You know, oh, they're going to go get Garrett Riley. Oh, they're going to go get this guy, this name your spread guy. I actually thought, take away the fact Bobby Petrino's been a head coach and all this other stuff. I actually thought, I'm with you, Tarp, philosophically, they're very, very similar. I mean, Bobby Petrino and Jimbo both have a reputation for being really good at play calling. But, you know, you look at it, it's not a spread. It's not an air raid. It's still got some very basic pro elements. You know, Bobby Petrino was in the NFL. Jimbo's been a pro-style guy. It's just that their play calling's made it work. So, you know, from that standpoint, you know, keep in mind that, you know, Petrino's these are veteran guys. Don't you think that it fits A&M's personnel and it may even play up and be an advantage this year?
I thought the most interesting thing I saw in the spring game was A&M has two quarterbacks in Connor Wigman and Max Johnson who are very different players. And a lot of times you'll see offensive coordinators attempt to run the same offense with both quarterbacks. And I think that was one of the issues that we've seen with Jimbo Fisher during his time in Aggie land. He's had different types of quarterbacks, but at the end of the day, he's tried to run the same offense and the same plays through those guys. Now, he'll occasionally change things up and play to their strengths, maybe in certain situations or maybe for a game. But as far as an overarching philosophy, hey, we're going, you know, Fisher wanted to have as many plays as possible available in his playbook to him as a play caller. And I think that's very important concept to understand. He wanted to be able, just like we all do when we play our Xboxes or our PlayStations or whatever, that we're going to be able to reach into that playbook and pull out a play and for any particular situation. The problem is that fake life isn't like real life. You've got to be able to practice those things. And so in the spring game, A&M did different things with Connor Wegman than they did with Max Johnson. They put Max Johnson under center. They put Connor Wegman in the gun more. Max Johnson is a guy who's much more comfortable under center. His dad played in the NFL. He grew up with his dad teaching him how to operate from under center. Connor Wegman, on the other hand, he probably never took a snap under center until he got to College Station. So you saw Petrino use those guys differently, and it wasn't like A&M ran two different offenses in the spring game, but they certainly played to their quarterback strengths, which are different in the spring game. And I think at least if you're following A&M, that was something that definitely caught your attention. If you're going back and forth on the whole Fisher-Petrino dynamic, it would certainly give you hope that things are going to be different in the fall than they have been in the past few years with Fisher running everything.
Yes, Bobby Petrino, everybody from Lamar Jackson to I think he had a guy named LaFrancois at Louisville to Ryan Mallett. I mean, he's very, very adaptable. So I'm in agreement with you there. A&M's got good receivers coming back, a lot of talent across the board. You know, Evan Stewart, I think in an offense like this could really thrive. You know, what's your take sort of on their skill talent and, you know, what they got coming, what they're going to bring to the table this year personnel-wise?
Well, you got to remember A&M still has, as of last year, it was 4 top 10 recruiting classes on campus. Now it's 3 top 10 recruiting classes on campus. But they've still got the talent from 3 top 10 recruiting classes on campus, including the best in show class of 2022. They're still in the top 10 as far as the Bud Elliott's blue chip ratio goes. So from that standpoint, they've still got a lot of talent. What they've had happen to them is they've lost over 100 player games to injuries the last 2 years. That didn't just affect them in terms of, hey, we've got to ask backups to play or we've got to ask true freshmen to play. It also affected their continuity. I think I figured it out. They've had 11 different offensive line combinations starting over the last couple of years. It's very difficult to make an offense go if you don't know who to block. And you could see that A&M had issues with that at times over the course of the last 2 years. They would have to make multiple changes within games, and it just made the whole thing dysfunctional. I think everything starts with if they could stay healthier, then you get people to settle into roles and for which they were originally schemed into them, and that they spent a lot of time repping. And so if that happens, then everything else maybe doesn't fall into place as much as you just get them doing the things that they're supposed to be doing. You know, their skill talent, Evan Stewart, Petrino, for example, just to give you an example of scheming, he worked really hard to get Evan Stewart the ball in the spring game, line him up at the X. He would, if A&M's on the far side, he would put him on, to the right boundary. He would put him on the left side of the formation and throw little out routes to him. Doesn't sound like much, but Evan Stewart's the type of guy that can make a guy miss and turn a 5-yard gain into a 50-yard gain. So they kept doing things like that. Stewart's a very dynamic player. He's one of those guys that adjusts to the ball whenever it's in the air. Moose Muhammad, the slot who, when Anais Smith was injured last year, came into his own as a starter. You know, most slots only get like 10 to 12 yards a catch. They move the chains. Moose is a guy who would catch the ball. And again, he really gravitates to space. You know, before the catch, after the catch, he's one of those guys that doesn't necessarily run a blistering 40, but you throw him the football and he's going to be headed into an area where people aren't. He's just that type of player. They got a tight end named Donovan Green, who was a freshman, who kind of operates on that same philosophy. And he's much bigger in the spring than he was last fall, which should serve him much better as a run blocker. Running backs, they relied a lot on Devon Achane last year. He's gone to the league. They've got some guys that are interesting. They were relatively highly recruited, including the 5-star freshman Reuben Owens. We'll just have to see how those guys come along in the fall. They could end up using 1 or 2 of them. They can end up using 3 of them, as well as a transfer from Colorado State named David Bailey, who could be a short yardage specialist. You know, the quarterback battle. There's more of a battle there than I think we all anticipated watching this team going into the spring because Wigman just really has a lot of arm talent. I mean, he made some throws in the spring game. It's like, wow, he fit the ball into windows along the boundary. It didn't always result in a completion, but the fact that he could get the ball somewhere near the receiver was evidence of just how good he can be in that role. And Johnson, of course, hey, he started close to a season and a half of games of SEC games in his career. He's very experienced. So they've got a lot of talent there. Every metric says they have a lot of talent. The problem is that, hey, it's young. They didn't get a lot of postseason recognition because they went 5-7 last year. And again, if you're playing, Stewart generated a lot of preseason hype last year because he was a 5-star. And he was on a preseason top 10 team. This year, all that's been a lot quieter because nobody is thinking that A&M is a top 10 team right now. And a lot of the guys on that side of the ball, they're just young guys, and they haven't had a chance to prove themselves. But the talent is there, and they just and they'll have a chance to do so this fall on the field. And they should have grown up some last year. And some of the guys that they were facing that were bigger, stronger, faster than they were last year, more experienced, they've departed college football. That should give those guys a leg up as well to show what they can really do.
It's interesting. You look at A&M last year, and then there's disappointment and shoot Tarp. I remember I tuned into the UMass game for a little while, and that's as empty as I've seen that place ever. I think, but I certainly understood it wasn't the most exciting game. But then I tuned in Thanksgiving night, and lo and behold, A&M took it to LSU pretty good. I thought, A&M, yes, they lost a bunch of games, more than was expected, certainly, but it's not like they quit. They were in every game, and they were relatively young. That recruiting class played a lot of snaps. Your take on that, and and maybe the fact that the underachieving talk and all that, wasn't all that valid, and they've made changes. That maybe this group was just sort of a year away, and like you said, with injuries, and I mean, shoot, they lost a lot of close games last year. I mean, if you really break it down,
A&M, one of the things I try to do, and people get lost in this, is the fact that when I discuss 2022, I'm kind of hard on them because they made a lot of decisions. Despite all the injuries last year, they made a lot of decisions that just did not work out. I can run at least 3 of them off the top of my head where they just plugged in guys day one in the starting lineup, and it's like, no, that was not the right move. Not just in retrospect, but you kind of had doubts about it going into the season, why player X was playing as opposed to player Y. The biggest issue with that was Haynes King. Had a lot of doubts about him going into the season. He was the best of the quarterbacks coming out of fall camp, but you got a lot of false positives with him in terms of this was a guy who was putting the ball into risky situations, but didn't have the arm strength necessarily to do that. Connor Wegman, it's interesting. I haven't brought this up on the boards. Pro Football Focus graded out Connor Wegman in terms of turnover-worthy plays. His percentage of turnover-worthy plays wasn't any different than Haynes King's. It's just that Connor Wegman has a really, really good arm and can put the ball where it needs to go, and he can get it there with enough velocity that it may look like a turnover-worthy play, but the chances of that happening are not very high. On the other hand, with Haynes King, if there was a chance for something to go wrong, it just went wrong because he just would put the ball in risky situations and didn't have the arm talent to get himself out of that situation. So you look at all that, they didn't make very good decisions. They had the injuries, over 100 player games lost to injury, not just in 2021, but also 2022. And as far as being a year away, in retrospect, they probably were a year away, and we probably did overestimate what was going on. But again, you look at A&M, you look at the publicity surrounding A&M going into 2023. Nobody's talking about A&M. They're not ranked in any top 25s. I wrote something up yesterday in which I said Jimbo Fisher is on more hot seat lists than A&M is on top 25 lists. And I think that's kind of silly. I think this remains a talented program. They've got the players to be able to play a top 25 caliber brand of ball. They just didn't do a lot of things well last year. We've also seen in college football how teams take dips now, especially because of the portal. You know, you can transform your team in a single season with all the personnel movement, and you can emerge and you get a couple of 3 breaks. You play, you, as you put it, you win the close games that you lost the year before, because especially in SEC play, everybody tends to play those 1-score games. What happens is that the teams that come out of the second half, go in the third quarter, get the lead, take a 2-score lead into the fourth quarter, gives them a margin of error, and they hold on and win. That happened to A&M multiple times last year. Third quarters were not very kind to A&M. In contrast, when A&M beat Arkansas, there are only 2 SEC wins. Arkansas, they won the third quarter. LSU, they won the third quarter. When they didn't win those third quarters coming out of halftime, they ended up making those games closer than what they looked. You're losing by if you're losing by double digits in SEC play in the fourth quarter, you're not playing very well. I'll be honest with you on that. That's my philosophy on that. You need to be able, but on the other hand, if you take a lead into the fourth quarter, you're playing from a position of strength. You've got people chasing you instead of you being the pursuer. And that's it's a lot easier to sit there and defend 80 yards of the field with 2 minutes to go in the game, as opposed to travel 80 yards with 2 minutes to go in the game with it on the line. A&M was in the position to pursue all too often last year. This year, they need to be the guy that says, hey, come get me, bro.
I agree with you there. I think they'll be much improved. Wrapping up with Jeff Tarpley. Texas and Oklahoma are coming into the league. We haven't talked to you since that happened. I know you're from Texas. You're very familiar with those 2 programs. My guess is they're going to struggle, especially Texas. I just think they've got some waking up and growing up to do as a program. Your thoughts, though, on how those 2 will fare? Because I'll be honest, I kind of thought A&M would have to build for a while, and they didn't. I thought Missouri would have to build, and they had one kind of transitional year, then won 2 divisions back to back. So, am I underestimating the Big 12, or what do you think? What do you think about those 2?
The first year that A&M was in the SEC, I went out to dinner with some friends of mine who they'd gone to places like Tech and Baylor, and we were talking, and of course Johnny Manziel was running wild, and those guys were asking me questions about him, and I just said, I'm for all of that. I mean, that A&M team had 5 first-round draft picks on offense. For all of that, I told those guys, I said, you know what? I said, when you go to Starkville to play Mississippi State, they arguably have the least amount of resources in the SEC West. It's one of the smallest stadiums. They recruit 3-star players from places, all these small towns in Mississippi. There's just not a lot, you're on the surface. It's like, well, walk in and it's no big deal. So the problem is that when Mississippi State, starting a 320-pound guard, leaves the field for an injury, they plug in another 320-pound guy.
Yeah, it's big. They're always big.
Yeah. I said, I told him, I said, you don't get this. I said, but every week it's like that. You go someplace. I said, you're playing somebody and they take out a 320-pound guy and plug in another 320-pound guy. They take out a 4-4 guy and plug in another 4-4 guy. And the Big 12 just doesn't have that kind of depth. And that was, to me, just that first season going into the SEC, was just kind of like, oh my God, this is, every week's just brutal. And I really remember that's still my impression out of that first year of the SEC. It's not, hey, what Johnny Manziel's doing? It's just like you're shell shocked. And A&M was very, very successful. But nonetheless, you're sitting there going, this is a different brand of football. And keep in mind, too, that once Manziel left, A&M struggled in 2014, 2015 until they kind of built up both their lines, and then they were more successful for a while in 2016. But I think that's what it's going to be like for Texas and Oklahoma, for all the attention that's paid to the quarterback position at Texas, and they have recruited really, really well there. Those guys lost a lot on the lines, especially defensive front last year. And I think that they're going to sit there and it's going to be a transition, and they're going, oh, wait a minute. We've got to have a different kind of guy than what we've had in the Big 12. And not only that, we've got to have more of them. And maybe we can't just stay in Texas and recruit, or maybe go to the West Coast and recruit. We've got to recruit, throughout the Southeast and throughout the areas that are going to enable us to bring in more of those types of guys than anywhere else. I think that's the one advantage that that's one advantage that A&M gained with Jimbo Fisher. Fisher's been able, via his ties with the high schools and the coaches across the region, is that A&M's been able to recruit parts of the Southeast, bring in guys like McKinley Jackson, who's projected to have a breakout year for A&M this year. They just don't have a lot of 320-pound guys in the state of Texas. And A&M they have 330-pound McKinley Jackson backed up by a 330-pound Isaiah Rakes with 320-pound Albert Regis waiting in the wings. When you start, and two of those guys are from out of state. So when you have to be able to recognize that those guys aren't necessarily in Texas, and you're going to have to stack those guys, and you're going to have to go outside the state to do that. And I think Fisher has brought that to A&M. And I think even though you didn't necessarily see the effects of that last year because of the injuries in 2022, they had to play guys who may have been big, but they weren't ready to play yet. I think that will be a different story now in 2023 and beyond, when the 2022 class starts to mature and guys from the 2020 and 2021 classes are upperclassmen.
That's true, man. I think another thing too. I think, and this is nothing against A&M or Missouri. I think with A&M, Arkansas is probably looking forward to playing them. LSU, because that was a historic rivalry. Alabama, because of the ties. Everybody else is just kind of like, well, here comes a team from the Big 12, and nobody's fired up to play Missouri. I'm not saying A&M snuck up on anybody. I'm just saying the rest of it, especially the middle part of the SEC, it's still a big deal to play Texas and Oklahoma. So I think in many ways, those two programs are going to get the absolute best shot of everybody. It's going to be a huge deal when they come in. But Tarp, man, we kept you too long. Enjoyed talking to you as always. You're very knowledgeable. I know I always learn something whenever I talk to you, and certainly a lot of respect for the work you do and for the Aggies. And I guess the Gamecocks and Aggies going to play again in 2024. I kind of thought this would be the last year, but I guess they're going to hold on to the Bonham Trophy game for at least one more season. So we'll be talking to you soon.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate the time as always.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Jeff Tarpley. All right. Well, that's very informative there. Love that. And that'll be we have a segment on our YouTube channel called Behind Enemy Lines. That interview in its entirety will be up on YouTube, so you can go through in the preseason and kind of listen to all the opponents and stuff. And look, I think A&M's gonna have a pretty good year. I think that they're going to be an intriguing team to watch. I think they're going to take Miami to the woodshed second week of the season. I promise, because the problems at A&M and Miami were way different last season, but. All right, Phil, let's double up on a break right now. The chat box is blowing up with lots of angst and consternation, so we're going to have to crawl in there and talk.
That's right.
A little bit, talks people off the ledge. That's fine. That's our job.
Therapy hats on. That's right. Yeah, we got to
Put
get
our
in
therapy
there.
hats on. This is Inside the Gamecocks show, and we'll be back after these messages.
Golfers and wannabe golfers, former Gamecock golfer Meredith Taylor is now a full-time golf instructor in the Midlands of South Carolina. In-person golf lessons are held at the Country Club of Lexington. Half-hour, hour, on course 9 or 18 holes. And if you're outside of South Carolina, Meredith conducts virtual lessons. Just send in your golf swing for analysis. Gift cards are available for in-person 1-hour lessons. Connect on Twitter at Mayor Taylor and find her online at McKellarEnterprises.org. Her email is on the website. Schedule your next lesson today with Meredith Taylor, former Gamecock golfer.
Hey, man, are you sick and tired of your business computer guy?
Yes, he takes forever to call me back and doesn't always respond to the requests.
Yeah, same here. I'm paying him good money. I constantly have issues, and I'm worried he's not backing up my network and securing it properly.
You know what, Phil? Let's ask Stone Blanton.
Hey, JC and Phil, if you want a solution to your IT problems, give Heritage Digital a call. Our boy Matt Odom has a low-cost, one-price solution that will get you running right. Call 843-699-1001 or heritagedigital.com and ask for Matt. He will hook you up today and tell them Stone sent you.
Electric Bikes of Charleston offers the most fun you'll ever have on two wheels. Magnum, Velotric, Aventon bikes, and more. And they sell to consumers all across the state and offer outstanding warranties and service after the sale. 5 levels of pedal assist plus a throttle help you handle the southern heat better, but still get great exercise. Bikes are available all ages and sizes. ElectricBikesCharleston.com or stop into their store in Mount Pleasant. Electric Bikes of Charleston, powering Inside the Gamecocks, the show.
Bikes are trusted! Electric Bikes of Charleston! Electric Bikes of Charleston! Electric Bikes of Charleston! Bikes of Charleston!
Hey Gamecock fans, it's Evan Stone from Gamecock Baseball. A couple of painters paint the show garnet and black every day and get the job done right at a fair cost. Go to letmepaintsomething.com for information and an estimate. Go Cox.
You heard Evan Stone, Gamecock fans. 10% off for military repeat customers or mention the show. Interior, exterior painting, fencing, cabinet staining, concrete painting, popcorn ceiling removal, and more. 803-522-6832. LetMePaintSomething.com.
If you're in the upstate of South Carolina and are in need of residential real estate services, Cindy Bass Searfoss of Caldwell Banker Kane is for you. Ask her about the village at Creekside, all of her listings in my hometown of Spartanburg, South Carolina, right there on Daniel Morgan Avenue, married to a lifelong Gamecock fan. And many of our listeners have already bought homes from her and been 100% satisfied with the detail and care she uses. Cindy Searfoss, 864-414-5271, Caldwell Banker Kane in the upstate for your real estate needs.
Building your dream home is often just that, a dream, and sometimes a nightmare. But at the Barndo Company, they commit to quality and build without sacrifice. Customization, open floor plans, limitless flooring options, maintenance-free and easy installation perks, and affordability are just a few reasons why they've been named one of the best builders in the U.S. Believe in your dreams. Visit thebarndominiumco.com. That's thebarndominiumco.com. The Barndo Company, Gamecock owned, Gamecock operated. The preferred sign partner of Gamecock Athletics is Signorama Columbia, and they should be yours too. A full-service sign company that handles design, production, install, and service, Signorama Columbia has helped to bring to life the perfect vision for so many all across South Carolina. Owned and operated by proud Gamecock alumni, they can handle all types of signage, including interior and exterior, vehicle graphics, and more. Go to Signorama.com and find the West Columbia location, or call them at 803-407-9284. Bring your brand to life with Signorama Columbia, and go Gamecocks!
that Miss Clark Lee's segment today. Woke up a little sleepy when I got up this morning, so I didn't really want to jump into that right before the show just to keep things upbeat. I'll have to watch it.
You're better off calling a couple of painters.
Yeah, right.
And going and watching their paint dry.
That's right. That's right.
I don't
like
him.
I think he's a great fit there. I hope they win more than a couple of SEC games. Just not ours.
Unfortunately, too, Phil, the day will come where they'll beat South Carolina again.
It will. It'll happen.
It's coming. I mean, it's been a long time. I mean, now it's been since they're going to 15 straight wins over Vandy. I mean, it'll come. Everybody loses to Vandy at some point. You got to take your medicine. Georgia lost in Kirby's first year.
Yep.
We remember Tennessee. My God, how many times did Derek Mason beat them?
Oh my goodness.
Jeez.
Well, that's all he had to hang his hat on. Yeah,
You got to respect him. But, Carolina's actually done really well against Vanderbilt. But, since they've been in the SEC. But thanks to Jeff Tarpley, that was an interesting thing. So the chat box is going kind of cattywampus here.
It's going crazy this morning.
Quantrell says Gamecocks are getting smacked around in recruiting. Guys, Malcolm Ziegler's been committed to UNC for 2-3 weeks. At no point did anyone on the coaching staff think South Carolina was in the game. Now, what happened was Malcolm himself decided to tell some of the commits that he may be coming. People got a little excited, and that info got around. And he didn't tell South Carolina he wasn't coming, which is not rare. A lot of kids don't make that phone call anymore. And so look, it's hey, I mean, I don't know what to say about that one. That should not have come as a huge surprise to anyone. But that's okay. I get it. We live in a different world, Twitter, all that good stuff. So I totally get it. And sometimes what's on social media isn't reality. In fact, most of the time that's the case, but that's okay. And look, Ziegler, his decision was not an NIL decision. It was staying close to home. His mom wanted him at UNC, his family. You can't blame a kid for making that decision, because if there was a kid from Chester and he went to North Carolina, you ought to be like flabbergasted right now. Oh my God. Rumor Gerd. But anyway, so that's the deal there with that. So I don't really consider that against SmackDown. So here's who you got to worry about right now: Dylan Stewart, Daniel Hill, Jonathan Paylor, and Jalewis Solomon. Those are 4 very good players. South Carolina, I mean, is sitting right there for, I think, all 4 of them. They're all 4 battles, obviously. You're battling NC State for Paylor. You're battling Alabama for Hill. You're battling Ohio State for Stewart. And you're battling Florida State for Solomon. That is not a lightweight list. You can say what you want about NC State. They're pretty good at recruiting in-state. They do have a good NIL program. NC State's one of the schools that really sells NIL in North Carolina, for example. So, it's called big boy recruiting. You're going to have ebbs and flows. There's going to be times where you think you're not getting anybody. You're going to kind of start doubting everything. You're going to be sad, but that's fine. I'd rather people care and have emotion about it than not care, because that's kind of what we do. We cover recruiting. If you didn't care, I wouldn't have a job. I wouldn't be sitting there talking to you. So
that's right.
Care. But you have to kind of understand reality and understand that not everything is this awful sign and should cause dread, right? You're not on I Am Legend. The sun going down is not going to have you get attacked by apocalyptic zombies that will turn you into the undead. Don't let that sunset get you freaking out. Sunsets are beautiful, brother. Don't let it get you freaked out. So, Cocky Joe, Stewart, Paylor, Andrew, Solomon, and King Edward. So King Edward Joseph. King Joseph Edwards. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a take right now. I need to get Hale to clarify, or somebody I know to clarify, because I kind of got that info from Hale. and his ranking dropped like a rock, and I don't know how many committable offers he has. I don't know that he's a take. So, if he ends up someplace that's not at the left, because he always keeps the blue bloods in Carolina at his top, whatever. If he ends up at a non-blue blood, then that's kind of a situation a lot like Troy Stevenson, right? Troy Stevenson, everybody's like Tennessee or Miami. McGurge. He ended up at Georgia Tech, which is exactly where he should end up at. King Joseph Evers may end up at Georgia Tech, which is exactly where a lot of folks feel like he should end up at. Now, I think South Carolina needs to put on its developmental hat and look at this guy closer and go, okay, is this someone we can develop? Okay. All right. So this guy's not very good right now. It's unknown. He's unknown. He's got a long way to go. But what will he be in 2 years? Because on the defensive line, you have to do that at all schools. All schools develop D-line. You're not going to get you're not going to get a Dylan Stewart every single year. Okay. And Carolina needs edge. So if I'm them, I'm circling back and I'm looking at it because it does seem like he's interested and wants to come. Now, maybe they don't feel he can. Maybe he's a guy that just loves recruiting, which he seems he does. Maybe he's not a fit, whatever. I need clarification on that. But I would not pencil him in on any kind of list right now until we get clarification on him. So let's say South Carolina goes 4 for 4, 3 for 4, whatever. There's 16, 17 commits. This staff, and it's, keep in mind, this staff arrived with the portal. So when the portal arrived, so we don't know. I need to check it to see like other staffs that do work the portal, what they do. Is the recruiting board a little more traditional? Do they have backup plans from the high school ranks, or do they just say, here are our top guys, here's what we're focusing on, and if we don't get them, we're going to the portal, which is not a bad strategy. The portal has served South Carolina well, and obviously it's not just been from guys that get in the portal from Alabama or Georgia or wherever. It's guys that get in the portal from, Podunk U that have ended up playing pretty well for the Gamecocks. And I don't think that's a bad strategy, especially when you look at the 2022 class and 2023 class, which are rather large with high school players. Plenty of high school talent, plenty of guys in those two classes. You had 17 or so in this class, and you jump in the portal because there are legit needs. Now, NIL is in the chat box a lot. NIL is going to matter much more with portal players than it will with high school players, and it always does. Now, it's starting to matter more. High school is kind of a little bit behind portal in basketball and football. And so I'll just say this, maybe not for long. Maybe the NIL situation does have to be there for you to recruit. Maybe all of the doomsdayers were right when this stuff happened. But I don't see that happening universally with every player across the board.
No, I mean, and you got to think too is like, yeah, and I mean, this staff is not going to stop recruiting these guys even when they, verbally commit to somewhere else. I mean, until pens to paper, it's still wide open. So you got to think some of these that were, kind of torn between us and somebody else. I mean, the staff is still going to, push for them.
Yeah, they're being called a flip.
Yeah, to flip them. Yeah, exactly.
More rare than it used to be because a lot of times the check cashes, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, that's right. Yeah, because now there's a transaction associated with it,
but
and a lot of
So that's the deal there. So I don't I don't see the need to kind of panic. It just kind of is what it is. This is a very good class, and it's a class that can probably contribute quite a bit to South Carolina elevating itself, at the various positions and stuff. But that's kind of a new thing because under previous staffs, what you'd have is 2 or 3 guys you miss on choices A and B, then you go to C and D and you usually can get them, or maybe even down to E or F. And that's how you recruited. But with the portal, I think one philosophy is why do that when you could probably go get just as good or better of a player? Why take the risk on a high school guy when you can get an older guy or a guy with 4 years of eligibility left that's just not happy in his current situation and get some guy with some experience. So I think that's a fascinating thing. Do I think they'll expand the board a little bit? Probably maybe offer some guys you haven't. Yeah, sure. Senior risers, that happens. Elijah Caldwell was a senior riser in this class. He's doing pretty well. They tend to pan out. Debo Samuel, senior riser. Sky Moore, senior riser. Rashad Fenton, senior riser. Lots of guys, senior risers. That they've taken. So, anyway, so that's all that there. But
you think there's a more inside-out approach to guys like that, like late, kind of rising guys who you try to pull in some local talent and give them a shot that you feel are a lot more developmental than proven commodities?
I think it starts in state. I do, and what you hope is, and look, you get nervous when you see a Troy Stevenson or a Marcus Downs or a Braylon Staley that are kind of highly regarded by certain people that claim. And I'll use the term claim, a bunch of offers, and South Carolina has an offer because, there's just – that's one thing at this program that I will be, with recruiting, critical about. I was critical of the last staff tremendously, especially at wide receiver. You absolutely cannot let top players from your state leave. And it doesn't matter if they're ranked highly or not. You can't misevaluate them. There's not enough. You're giving up. You're giving up gold, Jerry, gold. So, anyway, Keelan Adams, Macadino, that was part of his parents, but part of it was an NIL deal from Tech. It was pretty big. Liam Andrews is NIL with Penn State. It's funny because James Franklin continues to complain about it. NC State's got some NIL stuff cooking with Paylor, but, so does South Carolina. I think their Gamecocks are going to be fine there. He's on commit watch, whether that's now or August 5th or whatever. Gamecocks had some kind of iffy moments with Daniel Hill. They're back to feeling good about it, and they've always felt good about Dylan Stewart. So that's the deal there. So that's the deal there. So it's Quantrell says NIL's a reason. It's it feels like a cop-out. And an answer to a lot of stuff on missing guys you should land. Well, Quantrell, the guy, they haven't lost a guy to a school they shouldn't lose a guy to if NIL isn't a factor. Now, another part of this is they happened to go and find a bunch of good D linemen and recruited their butts off for them for years. And then Georgia swept in.
Yeah.
I mean, look, it wasn't, who was it? Justin Green. What was his name? Justin Green.
Justin, yeah.
Man, yeah. Carolina had, probably that dude was on early commit watch. Well, October, Georgia offers. Well, he's a Georgia kid, so that makes sense, right? And so there you go with that. And so who knew that was going to happen? But you can get through that. I mean, it's not you're not dead yet. You got a kid from Gwinnett County that gets a Georgia offer. You're not dead yet. So there you go. But then you get into some other guys. Jordan Thomas. Anybody really expect him to go all in on that Clifton jersey? And then the painful ones are Quintavious Johnson, who's kind of an upside guy, 3-star guy. And then the worst one of them all was Nadame Oboko from North Carolina, because Carolina had him ready to roll. Georgia swept in and got him. And none of those, Quantrell, was the word NIL ever mentioned. Georgia has a really good NIL program, but it's Georgia. So I understand, because I need to stress it, and I'm going to continue to stress it, because, I know most of the people on the show have done a lot of good stuff with NIL and contributed. But you need to tell your friends.
Yeah.
So just keep telling you, keep it in your mind. But I think that's the deal there with all that. Now we'll continue this discussion after the top of the hour. We do have Brad Crawford coming up with a report from Nashville.
At 12:40 now. 12:40.
Oh, it's 12:40. So
yeah, he's got an interview with Brock Bowers at 12:20. So we had to.
Oh, sweet.
Minutes. Yeah.
So we'll have that going. But anyway, we'll be back after this inside the Gamecocks show.
Just as your State Farm agent combines good neighbor service with surprisingly great rates, you can combine your home, auto, life, or small business insurance with Tony Pope State Farm Insurance today. And guess what you'll get? That's right, even more good neighbor service with surprisingly great rates. In fact, Tony Pope State Farm is your go-to agent anywhere in South Carolina, North Carolina, or Georgia for the service you deserve at the price you want. So try combining your home, life, auto, and or small business insurance today. Tony Pope State Farm has been in business for more than 30 years and can handle anything you need in the tri-state area. Once again, Tony Pope State Farm will help you mix and match perfectly. Call 843-851-2222 or visit TonyPope.com today. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Are you looking to buy a new home? Kevin O'Connell with Union Home Mortgage is a local mortgage expert and Gamecocks fan servicing North and South Carolina. Whether you're buying a home, building your dream home with new construction, or turning your equity into cash, UHM's world-class service will ensure you find the perfect mortgage to achieve your home ownership goals. Call Kevin at 803-906-0244 or visit UHM.com today. Union Home Mortgage is an equal housing lender. NMLS 2229, LONMLS 1772182.
Everybody inside the Gamecocks, the show. Second hour of the show starting now, but wanted to remind you the first hour of the show, as always, brought to you by Cindy Searfoss and the Coldwell Banker Kane Realty team here in the Upstate. Give Cindy a call at 864-414-5271 for all your upstate residential real estate needs.
All right, I'm seeing the chat box burnout, recruiting momentum. What the hell is recruiting momentum? Is it when fans are feeling good because you get a welcome home? I get it. It happens in every fan base. Like I said many times. And you can tell, you call up on in Tuscaloosa on Thursday mornings, Wimp Sanderson, Barry Sanderson. And you can tell these guys is like have been through the war. They've been hearing it from those fans. JC, why is Alabama 20th in recruiting? And is there a reason to worry?
And then the next week you go on there.
Top 10. It ebbs and flows. And keep in mind the Gamecocks got off to an earlier start than they normally do. I mean, for this class, Michael Smith, Wendell Gregory, all those guys. Keep in mind those guys are solidly committed. So is the two. What would have been awful is if you lose both in-state tackles. You guys don't remember the 90s around here, do you? Josiah Thompson had probably been gone to Tennessee, and I bet you Pringle would have been at Florida State back in the 90s. Okay, so there you go with that. Mazeo Bennett probably sticks with Tennessee. You know,
and Franks is probably off they get Clemson.
There's no way in hell they get Franks. I mean, Kelvin Hunter maybe. You know, that was your like Lee Wiggins or Tua Freeman kind of recruit from back then. So anyway, they've gotten everybody they wanted in state, which is the number one goal. They ran into Georgia. And look, if there's anything you think about, you know, 'cause somebody asked me, they're like, well, why isn't part of recruiting knowing who you can get? I mean, why would they not think they could get Justin Green? They had a 2-year head start on him. It didn't look like Georgia was that interested, you know. And then Oboko and the kid, the defensive end from Atlanta. I mean, those were kind of under the radar guys that popped up. Georgia just boom got them. Which there's two ways to look at it. Number one, it sucks that you lose them. Number two, though, it kind of shows you're doing something right in the evaluation process, because you're targeting some players that the school that can get anybody in the country just goes and gets. You know, so, you know, and look, is that disappointing? Yeah. Ideally, in that situation, you want to get 2 of the 5. With Oboko being from North Carolina and being kind of, had they had more of a head, had he not been a guy that just kind of emerged, you know, had they had a head start on him, maybe proximity wins there. I don't know. They probably told him he's going to be the next Jordan Davis, though, and he jumped at it. And so that's the deal there. But Lisa says people need to find some joy and trust in Beamer. I agree. I mean, I don't know that anybody's not trusting in Beamer. I think people are kind of antsy. It's the summer. There's not much going on. In previous years, there have been multiple commits in early July. This year, it's going to be in August. That's the money down. Okay, the money down doesn't always happen at the same time, people. The money period, money down, whatever you want to call it. The money making time, that's coming. That is forthcoming. Okay. Yes, they lost some kids to Georgia. Yes, they lost to North Carolina, leaned to North Carolina. Yeah, that happened. The surprising one was Adams, because, you know, he was a welcome home.
Yeah.
There you go. There's the first high school welcome home that hasn't committed. But we told you the situation there, and that kind of stuff is going to happen. Now, what you want to do is you want to look at it and go, well, you know, you got Mazeo Bennett, and you've got Jonathan Paylor, who you really won't need, who you've led on since eternity for 2 years. You know, you want to get those guys, but you got 5 you signed in the last class that you love. That's 7. Maybe you just wait and get a portal kid. Maybe, who knows? Maybe somebody joins the roster between now and the season. I don't know. I'm not fretting that. The only reason I fret it personally is because, you know, you got Fred Johnson and you start getting 2 from Virginia Beach 757. That's good. That snowballs. But look, his family didn't want him at Carolina. He wanted him at Virginia Tech. They made it worth his while. There you go. He's their number 1 recruit. Woo-ha, Hokie, 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 hi. I don't dislike the Hokies. Not hearing me say much bad about that fan base. I actually feel very sorry for them right now. But, you know, it's, you know, 76 says patience is a tired statement. Well, nothing happens overnight, and, you know, you can always go back, and if you're a Clemson fan, you could always have fired Dabo after 2010. How that worked out? Because some of them wanted to. You could have fired him after losing 5 in a row to Carolina. How'd that work out? I mean, come on. And it's not like progress hasn't been made. If Carolina was sitting there at like 2-10 and 3-9, and then they had this sort of good recruiting class going this year, and then it fell apart. And that's not the case. This is not a sort of good recruiting class that has fallen apart. This is a class where they've dominated the state. They've gotten 2 4-stars out of Georgia who are elite players. You know, I can't help it that some people don't, that in my opinion, some people are misguided about some of these player rankings for the Gamecocks. You got Fuller out of Georgia, who I think is going to be a stud. You know, it's a small class numbers wise, but it's quality. It's quality stuff. So, you know, as far as that goes, I'm just like not buying it. As far as Sean, the Birch talk. Yeah, I hadn't heard anything about that in a while. I doubt it's going to happen. The transfer finishes his classes. He's doing it right now, so we'll just have to see. Cocky Joe says, look like Carolina Rise has been doing well lately. We've been recruiting for that for sure. Yeah, thank you. I mean, that's needed. It did grow. Needs to grow more. Just to be honest, it's I'm thrilled with what's happened in whatever 3 or 4 days, but it needs to grow more. But we've got a lot of things to do about that other than talk about it on the show or the Big Spur. I mean, you guys are like one part of Gamecock Nation. We got to do a better job of getting the word out, but I feel pretty confident about that. 76. I'm so done with hearing NIL. Even if it is true, it's all just crazy. Out of pocket more and more and out of control, smacking fans in the face while millions are poured into the university. Well, you can't control the law or the rules.
Yeah.
And as a fan, look, I don't think that, what is it? How many 70 cents a day? I don't think trying to get 16% of the Gamecock Club to give you an average of $1.25 a day is smacking fans in the face with more and more and more. Now, people can whine and complain and suck their thumb and go sit in the corner because they hate Ray Tanner and you hate the man and you're going to go fight the man and the man is the man and screw the administration. We're going streaking through the gymnasium because we're rebellious and, everything's the administration's fault, the university's fault. And I'm not saying they've done a super duper job. I think that's some things beyond their control. Then they could promote it more. If you're going to rely on collectives, let's have the collectives out there. It's important. Stress it. However, sitting there and getting mad at the TV money or mad at the ticket money or whatever that you have to pay, because you got an extra, whatever, $18 a month. And it's only being asked of 16% of those people that are giving that money and spending that money, i.e., if you can afford it, great. If not, super duper. To me, is just kind of sour grapes. And it's kind of like, actively working against it. I don't care if people give to Carolina Rise or not. You're all my friends. I still love you. I still love you. No matter what, I love you. It doesn't matter to me. I'm going to treat you with respect and all that. But what I don't understand is the disrespectful disdain that comes out of some of y'all's mouth about it. Like you're working against it. I'm sorry. Look, I would be so happy if it went away. I'd be so happy. I'd be like, great. We're going back to the old days. But it's not. And Congress isn't going to solve it. And the NCAA is not going to solve it. And the flip side of fans being asked to help crowdsource it and stuff, and again, very small percentage, very small dollars, right? The flip side of that is for the first time ever, like, okay, so you're at University X, right? And you give money to build buildings or to build facilities or to fund scholarships or to, build a tailgating area, Phil. Inevitably, you're going to have some clown that comes in there and messes it up because he's the one calling the shots, the AD or the coach or whoever. Coach is the one in there going, now you're giving him a Taj Mahal to practice in, and he's sitting there watching film. He can't evaluate his way out of a paper bag. He's alienating his players. He's hiring his buddies to his staff, and they're not worth a flip. You end up getting your brains beat in, and where's all your money go? Right? Inevitably, that's what happens. And then he can't go get, even if he wanted to go get good players, he couldn't. With NIL, you get to directly impact the roster.
Yeah,
it's like
as a fan,
Xbox or fantasy football. You can go help get your team together.
In a real way, and not that damn, social media bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, you get to get that going, right? And you're not going to get every player and all that, but me looking back in the day, I mean, it's well worth that much money to say, okay, this is not so. This is going to dictate the roster. This is going to help get the program over the hump. And I don't, now like barging into people who make a good to modest living, who make six figures plus or whatever, and demanding $10,000 and stuff like that, that happens at certain collectives in certain states. That's a bad deal. because those are the people that have given more above and beyond. And then they're being asked to cut a 5-figure check, whatever. That's tough. But trying to run numbers and looking more at the total number of people giving and stuff like that, then who can I go ask for $25,000? I think it is, not something that fans should sit there and work against. And there are quite a few people on Big Spur and in here that try to actively work against it. And that's just, you're just prolonging your misery there. And you can quit being a fan. You can give up, which is you can give up. And like I said, you don't have to give. I don't want anybody's money. You do with your money what you want to do, because by God, I do. Everybody should have that right. It's America.
America,
right?
That's right.
America.
Spend my money how I want to.
But don't work against it. Okay? I'm tired of hearing about the administration. They're not coming to help. Okay? They can't. Okay? They had a good plan. Unfortunately, the NCAA decided otherwise. You can say, why didn't they know? I'm done with that. We can look back on that when this thing gets built and gets done. We can look back on that and examine that, do a postmortem. I'll be glad to. I'll be glad to criticize whoever needs to be criticized. But there's no time to sit there and go, well, why? And, so that's part of it. I mean, with the NIL argument is like, oh, the administration and this, that, and the other. No, hey, look, I'm working with the administration. I'm trying to get them to kind of lead them to water on some of these things. But unfortunately, it's not up to them. They're not taking money out of Gamecock Club dues. They're not taking any. I wish they'd take TV money. To me, in fact, the NCAA won't let them do that. It's almost communist. Because television programming is name, image, and likeness. Okay? If Dakarian Joyner was on Friends, I know Friends has been canceled a long time ago. Name a sitcom. Let's say Dakarian Joyner was an extra in what's that? Yellowstone.
Yellowstone, yeah.
He'd get paid, SAG stock money, because the Screen Editors Guild, which by the way they're on strike right now, so he get nothing. But he would get paid for his television appearance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't the football players who are the stars of the show, and they are the stars of the show, why wouldn't the stars of the show make anything in any kind of entertainment? So I'm with you. But guess what? That's a dream. That's not reality. They're not doing it. So what do? Do you just sit around and gripe about the commies all day? Or do you fight? Do you get up off the ground and say, I'm not going to work against this? That's all I ask for people. Just don't work against it. Don't work against it, because there's a very easy path to get there that does not take that much money out of people's pockets, and it does not really involve that many people. I mean, it should happen. Trust me. But, I'm just sick of hearing about, us fans are all taxed. No, if you feel that way, don't contribute a dime. But you're not a hero leading a revolution against this stuff when you're turning against the Gamecock people that are trying to help the Gamecocks. You're not a hero. You're a moron. You're not leading some popular revolution. So that's all I'm saying. Just stop working against it. I mean, good God. Wham.
It is what it is. You're not going to put the toothpaste back in the tube. And the university's hands are tied to a certain extent at all levels. But yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things where I hate the NCAA makes them not be able to have those fluidity with their dollars and from the TV.
It's awful
because it makes sense. I mean, it's like, everybody's just, who knows? They're like Mike said yesterday, they're good organizing things, but that's about it. They'll put you on a good tournament, but tough.
Quantrell says, I know Carolina's done a linebacker, but saw FSU offered Tamir Hickman Collins from Fort Mill as Indian land. I'm kind of surprised by that when looking at the offer list. Yeah, they think they found a sleeper up there. All right, so I'll say this. if he ends up being good, then that's something to be critical of the staff about. I mean, just to be straight with you.
Yeah, for missing
now,
on eval. Yeah.
Fred Johnson, Wendell Gregory, better prospects, yes, but you don't want to let good players get out of the state when you don't offer them and they go someplace else and start. But that's a long time from now.
Yeah.
So that's the deal there. Dylan Stewart, who's their Dylan Stewart, blah, blah, blah. 76 says, listen, hard decisions need to be made too. Some of these smaller sports, honestly, very few care about, need to be shut down because they don't make money in the slightest. Decisions need to be made. You can't do that because it's Title IX.
Yeah. Some of those have to exist to satisfy the federal regulation. Yeah.
76 says laws need to be implemented. This isn't the fans' fault. Nothing is the fans' fault. Nothing's the fans' fault. But the fans are the ones that are emotionally invested, financially invested in your time. They're stakeholders. And sometimes you got to look around and go, I got to get out of this burning house. I got to kind of save this. I got to clean up. I got to fix this house up myself. I know the landlord promised he'd do all these renovations, and my buddy who's a contractor said, oh yeah, I'll come by and help you do that sheetrock. And, the kids say they'll take out the garbage and then all of a sudden you look around, you got holes in your wall. Nothing's been fixed. All the crap's broken. And there's garbage piled up. Well, the first thing you got to do is start taking out the garbage. Next thing you need to do, you got to learn how to do sheetrock. Third thing you need to do, you maybe need to get on YouTube and learn how to fix stuff. If it is to be, it is up to me. And I came to this realization about a month ago. When we were talking about taking the Park Avenue deal, I was just like, you know what? It'd be great and all if USC and the SEC decided, oh yeah, everybody can kind of be whatever. But I can't worry about that anymore. I just got to, and Gamecock Nation can't worry about that anymore. That's kind of what's held this program back for years. Everybody's kind of waiting around on somebody to do something. Let's just do it. Let's fix the house up, Krager said, like he said, we need some 10K, 50K, $500,000 donations for the alumni who can afford it. Keith's got one track of this. I don't necessarily think, I think it would be great. I just don't, and he helps with some of the stuff too, but I think it's not right now publicly. It's not sound sitting there putting $50,000 pressure on people, right? The most somebody, even if they're a millionaire, wants to even like just disposable income out of their pockets 10, and I think if you get enough 10s, you're good. So, Jackson says, is Paler pushing his commitment back to August bad news? No. Quantrill says it's misdirected anger. I'm not angry. It should be geared towards the NCAA promoting the sham of the student athlete and suspending people like AJ Green and Johnny Manziel for shine jerseys. Hey, doesn't that look ridiculous now, right?
Yeah, some of that stuff that used to go on now. Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh my God, you got your jersey signed and got paid. What?
Yeah. Now we're just going to pay you before doing, just to come to school here. It's what it looks like.
I've gotten over my anger with the NCAA. I just laugh at them now. And really they make me sort of sick to my stomach. Reading their little letters that they send out and their guidance and knowing who's kind of still calling the shots up there. I mean, you got freaking people from Bucknell deciding what South Carolina should do. And higher education I could have literally 3 hours worth of a podcast on not ever talk sports and talk to you about what the hell's wrong with higher education these days.
Right. Yeah.
And it starts with, they don't prepare anybody for life anymore at all, unless you want to be an activist. On one side or the other, but mostly one side, right? It's like that show at Disney. This is a song, a celebration to great countries, all the great countries, but mostly America. Remember the Muppets? Sam Eagle said
But
that
mostly America. Yeah.
but mostly one side.
But mostly America.
I mean, yeah, they don't prepare anybody. You know, one of the best political things I've read, and the Democrats actually did this lately, is people are starting to invest in trade schools again. Great. You know how much electricians and plumbers make?
Yeah,
It's a good living.
I've been
And you can't find them. You know,
talking that
mechanics.
for years. I know.
So, I mean, you know, it's just one of those things. But it is out of control. Clint says, for me, giving to NIL is a gamble. I know when I pay the electric company, I'm getting power for the month. There's no guarantee for return on investment with NIL. Well, that's true if you're but you know, if you give the Gamecock Club, is there a guarantee you're going to win? I mean, that's misguided to me. It's like Taylor Edwards said, Clint. You may not feel it on the front end, but you're sure as hell going to feel it on the back end if you don't. And so that kind of philosophy, which you're entitled to, expecting a return on your, well, yeah, if everybody feels that way, what do you want? What do you want to have happen? You don't put the portal guys when you talk to them about potential NIL deals, because that's what it is. It's potential. You want to say we got to put you on layaway? You go to Kmart and pay it every month.
Yeah, set up. Yeah,
everybody, my mom used to.
Yeah,
put those pair of khakis, pay that $4 a week because you want to make sure those khakis fit and all that. So, I don't know. I think that's crazy. On the height weight thing, Caba's up to 250. People play linebacker at 250 again. Yeah, Alabama and Georgia have several. Thought that was a relic from the 90s. James Harrison size. Yeah, I get – and look, a lot of these guys that have higher weights, and this is another overreaction that we're supposed to get to, and we're going to get to it, they're going to lose about 10 pounds in the Columbia heat in the summer. Now, I saw some people worried about the defensive backs losing weight. They worked a lot on speed this offseason, agility, so maybe that's a function of that. I'm not smart enough to know. I wouldn't worry about any of those guys being light. You have two of the biggest safeties in the country. You have a 210-pound Jelon Kilgore backing them up, 205-pound or I haven't checked on Peyton Williams' weight, but he's big, right?
Yeah.
You got big linebackers, so I think I'm fine. Tristan says this way, a better depth of linebacker and DT than end. Should we switch to more of a 3-4 front this year? See, I don't know that that's true. I do think they'll play some 3-man front. But if you play Elijah Davis and Taka Hemingway at end some, I think that solves it, Tristan. I've seen some, and that's the thing. I think Jacius Gear and Jordan Strong will be the two starting ends. But if they elect to start Hemingway to get Sanders in there on the ends, get some more beef on the inside, and they start Hemingway on the outside, and Hemingway's down a little bit. He's about 280. And then you got Boogie. Maybe you do see a little more 3-man front with TJ and Nick Barrett and maybe Xavier McLeod a little bit, even though he is 285.
But you don't have that big nose. I mean, because you haven't been recruiting for that, though. You don't have that giant hole-filling nose tackle that you would see in a traditional 3-4.
Nick Barrett's 330, but he's 6'1".
Yeah.
I wouldn't be concerned about Xavier McLeod. That means he's getting in shape. He's a high school kid, defensive tackle. Those guys balloon to 320. That ain't good weight, man. So 284 is a good starting point with him. Joyner's up to 229. I think that's good if he wants to play running back. Krager says you should have had to tackle a person to the ground or run for a yard before you cash check. Any check from NIL. But there's no law saying that, so it is what it is. I agree. I think you should I think they should give all the freshmen a cut of the TV money, and that should go according to your and that deal you sign as a true freshman should be an exclusive NIL deal for 1 year. And look, you can't limit NIL money, but you can, as an independent NIL vendor, you can sign people to exclusive contracts. It happens all the time. And so you're like, all right, we're paying you to use your name, image, and likeness on the TV screens, and we're paying you this money, right? But it is exclusive for 1 year. So you're going to be a sophomore. And that would kind of solve some things. It's not going to solve ACC versus SEC because there's more TV money in SEC. But it would make things kind of even around. You wouldn't lose recruiting battles over who the initial bidder was.
Yeah, not for high school recruits. It kind of levels the playing field on the back end. And then, your name, image, and likeness is more true to what people were calling for prior to the days of it actually existing legally. Is okay, well, you're a stud on this team, so hey, why don't you come down here and promote my, used car dealership, and I'll pay you all kinds of money to do that. I mean, that's what it was all about. It was like, and
I love that
kids
part
being able
it.
to have their own YouTube cooking show. That's what.
Yeah, sign autographs, man. Yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous. And I told you guys on the show a couple of weeks ago, it's actually. The recruiting part gets frustrating because you hear about it, and recruiting is such a zero-sum game as far as you're either getting the guy or you're not. You're winning or you're losing, and to lose over money is like just you want to pull your hair out because that's not what we've learned all these years. But I have told you also, very truthfully, that in my dealings with NIL at Carolina, so much of it's just like life, man. And helping these guys in life.
Yeah.
Because life does happen. And people can say all they want, that these athletes make good because they have all this scholarship money. And they do. But many times their families don't. Their families don't get that. Or, hey, their mom, she's scrimping and saving so she can go to the games every Saturday. She doesn't have $7,000 to repair the car or whatever. And then baseball, you give it to NIL for baseball, it's just like giving the Gamecock Club because it essentially covers academic money or academic expense. So you're basically putting those guys through college. Bottom line. So that's the deal there. Tiffany says fans need to be educated. Educated is kind of educated or it kind of implies they're uneducated. This fan base is not uneducated. This fan base is sharp as a tack, actually, because otherwise, they're not a bunch of sheeple just blindly following. And I love that. We're South Carolinians. That's how we are. We don't like being told what to do at all. None of us. Admit it. None of us. Yeah, we started a war almost twice. Remember Jim Hodges?
Usually what gets us involved in that, right?
Was it Hodges or Haley? I don't remember who. Or one of the governors one time put the National Guard at the border over some nuclear waste thing.
Oh, I think that was stuff coming from Arizona that they were going to bury them out here.
University of South Carolina, the ACC started jerking them around there. Oh, hell no, we're out. Bye.
Yeah, bye.
Yeehaw. I mean, we're South Carolinians, man. Don't tell us what to do, right? But that's that's the thing there. Saunders says this is in the same vein as something you already do, just allowing specific donations to go to specific players. That way people feel like their money went to someone instead of a big pool. Yeah, I'm all for that. I want to limit it a little bit because there is a need for pool because needs arise in different times for different players. Okay. And year to year goes one. You don't want, Spencer Rattler. He's doing fine, man.
But the portal directly speaks to that, though. It was like that's why you can't really gear it that way because you limit yourself for portal.
Yeah, you got to have portal,
but more and more and more these days require NIL deals.
And see, the other thing too, if it was legal, every time you had a portal season in any sport, I just line them all up. And I almost got in trouble kind of doing that. It's like you could, if the guy comes, it can go to this portal player in baseball. I was told that kind of straddled a little bit of a line. But I would line them all up on the internet and be like, hey, click on this guy's face to give $5. But and then that's kind of what that would be ideal to do. Like put, have like 10 guys. All right. Check this out. 10 players during the week, no more than $5, and then all that money goes to the player. that wins and you match it, or somebody matches it, I'll match it. Or you now this is almost gambling. It's almost like fantasy football. I was going to say, put money on whoever has the best game. Yeah. And then you split the pot at the end. But I think that's FanDuel, isn't it? I don't know. Anyway.
That's creative thought, though. I mean, we need to apply some of that in this landscape, because the creativity is going to ultimately win out. Yeah. Especially when there are no guardrails.
My man Kevin asked if coaches can put money in the collectives. No, they can't. That's nobody from the school that works for the school or that works in the athletic department can do that. Is my thing. JC's
let's have a quick break, JC. We got
sure.
Yeah, we got Brad in here. So we will see y'all with Brad Crawford here in about 2.5 minutes.
Golfers and wannabe golfers, former Gamecock golfer Meredith Taylor is now a full-time golf instructor in the Midlands of South Carolina. In-person golf lessons are held at the Country Club of Lexington. Half-hour, hour, on course 9 or 18 holes. And if you're outside of South Carolina, Meredith conducts virtual lessons. Just send in your golf swing for analysis. Gift cards are available for in-person 1-hour lessons. Connect on Twitter @MayorTaylor and find her online at McKellarEnterprises.org. Her email is on the website. Schedule your next lesson today with Meredith Taylor, former Gamecock golfer.
Hey, man, are you sick and tired of your business computer guy?
Yes, he takes forever to call me back and doesn't always respond to the requests.
Yeah, same here. I'm paying him good money. I constantly have issues, and I'm worried he's not backing up my network and securing it properly.
You know what, Phil? Let's ask Stone Blanton.
Hey, JC and Phil, if you want a solution to your IT problems, give Heritage Digital a call. Our boy Matt Odom has a low-cost, one-price solution that will get you running right. Call 843-699-1001 or heritagedigital.com and ask for Matt. He will hook you up today and tell them Stone sent you.
Electric Bikes of Charleston offers the most fun you'll ever have on two wheels. Magnum, Velotric, Aventon bikes, and more. And they sell to consumers all across the state and offer outstanding warranties and service after the sale. 5 levels of pedal assist plus a throttle help you handle the southern heat better, but still get great exercise. Bikes are available all ages and sizes. ElectricBikesCharleston.com or stop into their store in Mount Pleasant. Electric Bikes of Charleston, powering inside the Gamecocks, the show.
Charleston! Electric Bikes in Charleston! Electric Bikes in Charleston! Electric Bikes in Charleston! Electric Bikes in Charleston!
Welcome back, everybody, inside the Gamecocks, the show, live from the Sinorama Studios, as well as Nashville, Tennessee. Now, with Brad Crawford at 24/7. Brad, how are things up in the Music City there?
Staying busy, man. Trying to find a stable connection here amongst the hundreds of media throng here in Nashville. SC Media Days. Shane Beamer goes Thursday. Already heard from Kirby Smart. Just talked to Brock Bowers, best tight end in the country. Busy week so far, fellas.
So I haven't been able to hear much about your Brock Bowers interview, though, but is he legitimately thinking that a tight end can make a Heisman run? Is that what I'm catching off of that?
Yeah, I don't think he is. He just he understands that it's a quarterback-driven award, knows that if he can have a 1,100-yard receiving type season, couple rushing touchdowns, Georgia's 12-0 like everybody expects, maybe he can be in that mix, but man, it's going to be hard to unseat Caleb Williams as the reigning winner of that award.
Well, if he has that kind of season, you're more than likely talking about Carson Beck being able to take that trip up
Yeah.
to New York. Yeah.
Caleb Williams will choke it away.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry.
Choke it
Lincoln
Trojans
Riley
will
will
choke
choke
it
it
away.
away. Yeah.
That's right.
They'll choke it away. Brad, so I saw on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, one of the social media things, took a picture of a Gamecock helmet last night. So there's a lot of talk about this team. What are you hearing on the ground up there in Nashville about the Gamecocks?
Yeah, JC, I spoke to several non-Carolina reporters last night at dinner, and a lot of those guys were saying they're thinking about putting South Carolina #2 on their ballot later this week behind Georgia, obviously, in the division. I think right now it's a really close debate between South Carolina, Kentucky, Mizzou, maybe those three just after Tennessee based on, what Tennessee did last season, who they're bringing back, the hype behind Joe Milton at quarterback. But I haven't revealed my ballot yet, but I'm probably going to put South Carolina #3 in the East, 7-5 type season, right behind Georgia and Tennessee.
I think that's fair. You look at the schedules of all three and who they got coming back, and the fact that the Gamecock game's in Knoxville. I mean, I as far as picking it goes, I'd probably pick it that way. I doubt it ends up that way because it never does. But it may end up that way, it may not. We had Jeff Tarpley from Gigem24 on earlier today. The Jimbo Fisher, Bobby Petrino thing. And Tarp had a surprising answer to me. He said Jimbo probably really is, like, personally not wanting to talk about giving a play calling after an entire career of calling plays. I don't know. I kind of think maybe there's some strategery behind it, because if you sit there and you think Jimbo's still calling it, and their offenses are similar,
right?
You're going to use some prep time up, maybe just at least reviewing his tendencies. Whereas if it's all Bobby Petrino, you're just going to go 100% Petrino. So maybe there is some strategic.
If he did hire one of college football's best chefs on offense, so to speak, you've already given him the ingredients with Connor Wegman, former 5-star quarterback, going to be a sophomore. Evan Stewart, former 5-star receiver, really good player. Moose Muhammad's son, another great player. So the ingredients are there to be really good on offense for A&M. 4 starters back up front. But Jimbo, like you said, JC, he has to sort of step to the side and let Bobby Petrino do what he does best. And yesterday here in Nashville, he was reluctant to just say, yes, I'm giving the playbook to Bobby. I'm hands off. We know Jimbo's not going to be hands off. This would be like Lane Kiffin or Steve Sarkisian saying, I'm going to hire an OC and I'm not going to follow. Even Steve Spurrier, I'm going to hire an OC and not going to follow that side of the football. But obviously Jimbo's fingerprints are going to be all over these game plans offensively. But I do think Bobby Petrino was brought in for a reason, and Jimbo knows he has to win big, and Bobby's going to help him do that.
Yeah, I think they'll tattoo Miami in week 2. Of those two disasters last year, I thought A&M was the least of the two because they remained competitive. If you look at some of Miami's results last year, they flat out gave up, which is surprising for a Mario Cristobal team.
Yeah, Middle Tennessee hung half 100 on Miami.
Yeah, you get blown out by Duke at home, blown out by Pitt in the finale.
Yeah. Usually, I don't care if Miami's 2-10, they get up for Florida State and play them off their feet. Florida State beat the tar out of them. That to me, that with that talent, that's given up. That's just not caring. And I think that's a different scenario down there. Brad, you talked about Georgia, Kirby Smart today, so we were kind of joking around, or actually had a roundtable discussion. Would he filibuster today and kind of read his depth chart and stuff to avoid taking those AJC questions, drag racing questions, whatever? Has he gone yet? And what's happened, or what do you anticipate will happen?
Yeah, Kirby answered about 8 questions in the main room. He's kind of going through his local media scrum right now. But JC, 7 of the 8 questions pertain to the season or the favorable schedule, and really only 1 pertained to the 2 deaths they had in January from the speeding, and then some of the arrests they had these offseason. So he pretty much got lofted, a ton of softball questions, and the AJC actually was not mentioned in the main room today. So maybe that's by design. maybe he's getting some Nick Saban treatment. Media members a little bit afraid to, poke the two-time national defending champion. But I think it has been a newsworthy offseason in Athens, and not in a good way. Kirby may not admit it, but this has certainly been a distraction really since he won that second title in January, and something that he needs to fix before the season begins.
Yeah, the drag racing thing, I'm all in favor of them fixing it. I mean, you've been to Athens, Georgia, Brad. That's, hey, maybe Manhattan, Kansas, or Lincoln, Nebraska, you go out on that long stretch of highway, you can get by with it. But Athens is a very hilly, tight, turny kind of place. I mean, you'd be
JC, me and you grew up on backcountry roads, you know, in Carolinas and stuff. There's no room for 180-mile-an-hour Hellcats there.
No, not at all. All right, so final question. We'll let you go here. Our favorite DJ, Mark Ryan.
I knew this, baby. Yeah.
And Diesel, who I know. I used to work with Diesel. I've had beers. I've had several beers with Diesel. He's a good guy. I don't know that. I think if he got in a sports debate with me, I'd just probably nod my head and say, "All right, buddy, whatever." But so tell us what happened. Tell us what happened with that. I'll set the stage. Basically, they said Finkel is Einhorn, Einhorn is Finkel. Like for Ace Ventura, Beamer is Muschamp is Beamer.
Yeah.
Which me, even as a guy that saw the good in Will Muschamp, I know that's not true at all. Just based on who Beamer's beaten and the situation and all that. So kind of set the stage after you read that tweet and then kind of what happened.
Yeah, last I think it was Wednesday, JC, and I'm rarely triggered by Twitter posts, but when it comes from a fellow media member, I feel like that gives me a lane to, speak my opinion, especially when it's on radio. So Mark tweeted that Will Muschamp essentially and Shane Beamer are the same coach at Carolina after 2 seasons. Both of them have the same record, but guys, we know 15-10 for Muschamp. It was not the same 15-10 for Shane Beamer, or whatever, 15-12, whatever it is. Shane Beamer beat Clemson. Muschamp did not beat Clemson. Won at Kentucky, didn't do that either. Top 25 finish in year 2. So I wanted to explain to Mark just how bad his take was, and having a show in the Palmetto State, upstate, I think it was kind of meant to trigger. So it certainly triggered me. I went on Mark's show to defend myself, to defend Shane Beamer's honor, I said on Twitter. But the funniest thing was, after I got off the show, I got a ton of texts saying, dude, Diesel and Mark are still talking about you, saying how hurt they were by your tweet. So I don't know, man.
You hurt their feelings.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't personal, but to say Will Muschamp was better than Shane Beamer 2 seasons in, I don't know how that take can happen.
Yeah, Big Wash says Mark Ryan was referring to the record and fan base. He was actually right. On what planet are you living, Big Wash? And earlier on, he said the fans are going to turn on Beamer after 7-5. So this Big Wash guy's washed out, right? No, but he does stuff like that. Just like the Garrett Riley situation.
Yeah.
Which, it's plausible to sit there and, put two together and think, well, Shane probably taught him. But come to find out, Shane didn't talk to Garrett at all. Period. In fact, I'm convinced Shane, right, wrong, or indifferent, only targeted Dowell Loggins at this point. Right, wrong, or indifferent. So, they said that. They said one day that because they hired Shane Beamer on the cheap, that they should take forever to thee out of the alma mater. It's just constantly nagging bull crap like that. And I used to go on Mark Ryan's show when he was down in Florida, when he was in Houston, all the time. Very nice guy.
Yeah, he's a Gator. Yeah.
And I used to work at that station in similar time slot. Okay. I know Diesel. I know all those guys. I've been in that building. And I'm just, the only word I can use to describe it is disappointing. It's just disappointing to me, because you're not serving your audience when you do stuff like that.
That's exactly how he described me when I got on the show. He said he was disappointed. He said that he wishes I would have listened to the segment. The segment wouldn't have changed my opinion at all. So
not held up against the take. And I mean, he's not necessarily known as having the most thick skin in the industry either.
I mean, look, the record is the same, but not all 15-11s are created equally. I mean, Muschamp had some nice wins. I mean, Michigan, NC State, his second year were nice wins. I thought Muschamp's first year, he probably overachieved a little more than Beamer did, considering the personnel and the freshmen that he had to play, and turning it around like he did. But they both kind of turned it around. But he didn't have the wins like the underdog wins. How many wins does Beamer have as a double-digit underdog? 5 so far in 2 years?
Like 4 or 5, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so, he didn't have that. And certainly, even though, and a former staff member did tell me this, that the Clemson they had to face under Muschamp was night and day better than the one still, Clemson's Clemson. And I don't care if they're terrible, you better beat them at South Carolina. And if you don't, you're in trouble. And then the win over Tennessee was just and those things elevated the program a lot more in 2 years, in my opinion. Than
let me give you one stat here, JC, that nobody has said this week. I was going to say it for Shane Thursday, but I'll say it here. Shane's the only coach the last 2 seasons who's beaten 3 national champions of the current 5 active in college football. Jimbo Fisher, Mac Brown in the bowl game, and he beat Dabo on his home field. So Shane's done a heck of a job through 2 seasons.
Yeah, and he hadn't coached against Saban. That's next year, and then Kirby's beating him pretty good. But
that's we need to pick up.
I mean, I actually tweeted about that after he beat Dabo. 3 of the 5. I didn't know if he was the only coach or not. I didn't go that far in my research, but yeah, I talked about that. But anyway, look, thank you, Brad. Have fun up in Nashville, man. Enjoy following your coverage and stuff, and looks like you're having a good time, and keep killing it with the great coverage, man.
Thanks, buddies. See y'all soon.
Thanks,
Brad.
One Bradford Crawford from 24/7 Sports. We got to get to a break.
We got one more to cram in real quick.
Yeah, we're gonna break.
What
did Wash?
I don't know what's going on.
All right, I still want to know Wash. What part of Mark Ryan was right about what? Anyway, we'll be back.
Hey Gamecock fans, it's Evan Stone from Gamecock Baseball. A couple of painters paint the show garnet and black every day and get the job done right at a fair cost. Go to letmepaintsomething.com for information and an estimate. Go Cox.
You heard Evan Stone, Gamecock fans. 10% off for military repeat customers or mention the show. Interior, exterior painting, fencing, cabinet staining, concrete painting, popcorn ceiling removal, and more. 803-522-6832. LetMePaintSomething.com.
If you're in the upstate of South Carolina and are in need of residential real estate services, Cindy Bass Searfoss of Caldwell Banker Kane is for you. Ask her about the Village at Creekside, all of her listings. In my hometown of Spartanburg, South Carolina, right there on Daniel Morgan Avenue, married to a lifelong Gamecock fan, and many of our listeners have already bought homes from her and been 100% satisfied with the detail and care she uses. Cindy Searfoss, 864-414-5271, Caldwell Banker Kane in the upstate for your real estate needs.
Building your dream home is often just that, a dream, and sometimes a nightmare. But at the Barndo Company, they commit to quality and build without sacrifice. Customization, open floor plans, limitless flooring options, maintenance-free and easy installation perks, and affordability are just a few reasons why they've been named one of the best builders in the U.S. Believe in your dreams. Visit thebarndominiumco.com. That's thebarndominiumco.com. The Barndo Company. Gamecock owned, Gamecock operated. The preferred sign partner of Gamecock Athletics is Signorama Columbia, and they should be yours too. A full-service sign company that handles design, production, install, and service, Signorama Columbia has helped to bring to life the perfect vision for so many all across South Carolina. Owned and operated by proud Gamecock alumni, they can handle all types of signage, including interior and exterior, vehicle graphics, and more. Go to Signorama.com and find the West Columbia location, or call them at 803-407-9284. Bring your brand to life with Signorama Columbia, and go Gamecocks!
days away from football, real college football being played. I think that's about it. 40 days till week 0. Isn't that what we're looking at? Can't wait. Can't wait.
Big Wash has a good question. First, I want to address one more NIL thing. About Clint's return on his investment thing. So, Clint, people like you probably should not give to a collective, or at least any kind of significant. I don't know if you, I don't know if you give to a collective or not. And when I say people like you, people that are very passionate and cover recruit and are very opinionated about recruiting, you're ultimately going to be disappointed because you're ultimately going to cling to your own opinions about players. You're not going to pay very much attention to the development process. You're going to kind of be a slave to the star system. You're going to be severely disappointed whenever inevitably somebody doesn't pick your school. And then you're going to feel like you're not getting a return. And so, yeah, if I was passionate like that, and there's several of you out there, and I don't think any of them give the NIL, and that's good because just for your own sake, buddy, it's going to drive you insane. And if you attach your pocketbook to it, it'll drive you even further insane. So I'm kind of with you there. I think that you should probably sit on the sidelines because it's not. I just kind of know how that mindset works because I lived it, and it would drive me up a tree if I, because we all have our opinions and all that good stuff. So, and I respect your opinion. I mean, you do your homework. I don't always agree with your evaluations, but I don't agree. I mean, nobody agrees with evaluations. You can put 10 guys in a room that have done it forever; they're going to disagree. But I wanted to kind of back up there and say that does make sense, that with that, because that kind of, I mean, like I said, dude, it's not worth stressing out, and adding that extra stress, because I know the folks that are very passionate about recruiting like you stress out about it anyway. So there you go. So there we go. Big Wash said, Mark said he understood Brad was right about the wins, but will be enough to keep the pressure down since he is and has done better than Muschamp. That's not what I listened to the segment. That's not what really Mark was saying. They kind of backtracked a little bit, but that's okay. I do. I think they'll be okay with 7-5, 6-6. It depends on how it works out. I'll tell you this: if Gamecocks are bad on offense this year, it's going to be a whole lot more of a, grinding deal than if they're not. Now if they're bad on defense this year, I think you got to kind of, if they can't stop the run again, you got to kind of look at what you're doing. And I believe in Clayton White's defensive scheme. I like it. I think it's creative. I think, he didn't inherit like a bunch of players at all spots to run it like I think he wants to. But you can see, I mean, there's interesting stuff like big old dudes at will linebacker and smaller dudes at Mike, although Mo is 253 pounds now. So there is a big Mike now. The buck / end. I mean, all the odd fronts, all the blitzes and stuff. I mean, he and part of his struggles, I think, have been that they couldn't score some games. How are you going to blitz and gamble if you can't score? So anyway,
that's all right. I think the team will be improved overall this year. I mean,
Clint says, didn't mean to sound like a jerk. Yeah, I was just saying I respect it. I get it. Sometimes I'll say things, and none of this was directed at you personally. I was just having a conversation, but I thought about you personally, and I was like, empathize. Quantrell, too, to a certain extent. Quantrell, passionate recruiting guy. I was just kind of empathizing and putting myself in those shoes, and I'm like, oh, crap, that would suck. Especially if I have my pocketbook tied to it or my wallet. But that's okay. Like I said, we're looking for 16% of the Gamecock Club. So that's not, 84%. Do whatever. Listen to the show. Listen to the show. Join the Big Spur. That's all.
Hey, that's why 1801 is perfect, because it's, I'd piss away $18 to $20 a month. So might as well give it to something, even though I don't have necessarily any direct control over. I'm not looking for ROI at $20 a month.
JB will be back tomorrow. He sent a picture from the golf course. Don't know what it was all about, but I'm going to go check it out. For Phil Mullinax, this is JC Sherbert. This has been Inside the Gamecocks, the show. Don't forget, Late Night Gamecock Show with Matt Anderson dropped last night. He had a lot to say about recruiting and stuff. That's been a show. It's been a lot of good numbers right here on our platform on Inside the Gamecock. So when you listen to us, you can listen to some of Matt as well. I want to thank our guest, Brad Crawford, Jeff Tarpley, for joining in today. Also, I want to say that if you want a mattress and you are in the Low Country, go to where the Low Country goes to sleep, May River Mattress Company. It's mayrivermattress.com. They're a proud supporter of Carolina Rise, Gamecock owned and operated. So if you're down there where my grandfather used to call the end of the world, Bluffton, Hilton Head, Beaufort, consider getting your mattress at the May River Mattress Company. They've got a low price guarantee and a quality guarantee. So don't go for a chain. Don't go to Mattress Plus or whatever. May River Mattress Company. They'll take care of you. All right, we're out. We'll talk.